Hey there, welcome back to the Path to Zion podcast, where we are rediscovering the ancient way. Whether you are listening online over at pathtozion.com, or if you're tuning into our YouTube channel, thank you for joining us today as we talk about what? The name. The name, not a name, not the name of a city or of an animal or a plant, or even of a human being. We're talking about the name of Yahweh Elohim, the Almighty. The Elohim of the Bible, the Elohim of Abraham and Isaac and Israel. And I'm going to start off with a question. Whether you are tuning in for the very first time today or you're a long-time listener, what if I told you that I had decided to call upon the name of the Elohim of Israel as Allah from now on? What would you say? What if I told you that I have been just going through this in my mind and in my studies and in the deepest thoughts of my heart, and I just really want to assign, to use a biblical word, ascribe glory to the name of the God, I'm doing air quotes, of the Bible. And I just decided I'm going to call him Allah from now on. Would that be okay with you, friend? If I told you that I'm going to call God Allah from now on for the rest of my days here on the earth. Now, I can hypothetically, of course, hear this resounding no from Christian brothers and sisters who may tune into this program. Well, here's the question, though. Why is that? Why would that be something very, very strongly frowned upon? If let's say I inserted that into an online discussion on some mainstream Christian belief system commentary, or I don't know, anywhere Christians gather in a public forum and sector where they discuss the Bible or things of how to be like Jesus and these things we've all attempted to do. What if I said, I think we should just call God Allah? I can guarantee you that there would be this major explosion of concern and correction. It would not go well. But let me put it this way. Ever since we started addressing the Almighty by name, Yahweh, we've been told many reasons why that just does not matter. His name doesn't matter. Now, I will say from the very beginning, because I know how this often goes with anything that you put out into the public forum when you talk about the name, I know even if I ask you not to do that, that response that's in my head, to do this, it will happen anyway, but I'm going to kindly suggest anyway that you don't start dissecting which name it is. I am very well aware, people message me, people email me, people post public comments saying, haven't you ever studied the name to know it's Yahuwah or it's all these other considerations? Yes, we've looked into those. We're aware of those. I'm thankful that people, those who actually suggest it kindly, make sure we've looked into this. We have done that, and we presently say the name Yahweh. That's what we say when we're addressing the Most High. And so that aside, it's interesting to me how the majority of people outside of what we would call the Torah movement or the Messianic movement, even the Messianic movement for the most part, has no trouble saying God and Jesus in many ways, in many different places. That's not uncommon. We're not really here to come against that today at all. That's not my point of why we're doing this. But in the same line of thought about what if I started calling the God of the Bible Allah, that would receive such a backlash. The exact same people that would bring a backlash towards this consideration are the same ones that say his name doesn't really matter if I suggested that we call him by his name that was revealed to his people, Yahweh. And we've been told many reasons, of course, over the last 5 or 6 years why it doesn't matter, such as his name is irrelevant. No one can really know his name anyway. There are still people who believe errantly that, they think that it was right that the Jews, quote, hid his name and tried to preserve his name in secret so that nobody knew or no one errantly spoke his name. Others will say that, well, everyone knows who God really is, And then there's my two personal favorites, just the ones that I probably hear more often than anything else. Well, God knows my heart, and He knows this is generally the one that has responded with this, and people who become quickly offended at just the consideration of speaking His name. He knows who I'm talking to. That's my favorite personally. Now, I've taught much more formally on this topic for years. Okay, here on the podcast, we've talked about it in many different ways, from many different angles and considerations. We've covered a laundry list of Bible texts towards the importance of His name. But I still find it very intriguing as a topic of discussion. And I just wanted to briefly bring it up and talk about it here again today and ask the question, how have we arrived here? How have we forgotten the endless biblical instructions to call upon His name? Now, this sounds somewhat comical, and we've covered this, of course, in past episodes many times. Many Christian songs and sermons and phrases and just casual dialogue between believers will often reference praise His name or give glory to His name or something about the name. But it's really kind of funny when so many people will say the phrase, the name of the Lord, but not utter His name. That He in fact has given us His name. And again, we've highlighted this before on much deeper levels. Now, some examples, the Word tells us that one must call upon the name to be what? Saved, rescued, delivered. We're told to proclaim His name. We are to be baptized in His name. Revelation tells us that in the end of the age, His name will be on the foreheads of His set-apart people. Perhaps one of the greatest biblical warnings that sums up where we've landed, in my opinion, in regards to the name, is found throughout the Torah, where we're specifically told by Yahweh Himself, we are warned, instructed, commanded, do not profane my holy name. Now, this goes, I would say, in my limited understanding of historical happenings in the past through Judaism and the traditions of men and the sages and all those different things, their desire to cling to not profaning His holy name and making it common really went awry, and has been at least a part, not in its entirety at all, but at least a part of how we've arrived here, where nobody really cares that He has a name. You don't hear His name uttered primarily in what would be considered an average assembly of people who call themselves ones who follow Yahweh Elohim, Yahweh the Almighty. Now, we did talk about in years past that there's been a bit of a resurgence. There are some, Christian pop singers who have songs where you repeat the name of Yahweh. Every once in a while, you'll hear them throw in Yeshua. There are some Christian artists that are messianic that kind of do the whole crossover thing and really ride that train of, pulling in the best of both worlds, and they'll say Jesus and then they'll say Yeshua. I'm not saying it's entirely unheard of. This is a personal challenge to all of us, because Yahweh Himself said, do not profane my holy name. Now, plainly stated, this is just saying, don't make my name common, which this may sound a little bit complex, but I feel like by not saying His name, but instead we say God, which is merely Elohim, which we have always talked about here. Elohim is plural. Yahweh is the Elohim of Elohims. Most of you who listen to this program, of course, know that well, better than I do. But there is a plurality of gods, and he set Himself apart and distinguished Himself, which is holy, kadosh. He is the Elohim of all Elohim. He is the God of all gods. But He is not just God, because that is a plural form, a very general definition of mighty ones, okay? But we have one set apart, distinct mighty one, and His name has been given to us by Himself, Yahweh Elohim. He is the one seated upon every principality, power in the highest of highs. He supersedes them all. Now, whenever I reflect back on my 40 plus years that I was in normal church, okay? Normal system of belief. Whether I was in a seat in a gathering or if I was on a stage speaking, I have no memory of any of us, myself included, speaking about specifically now Yahweh's great name. We didn't talk about his name specifically. We only talked about come, glorify the name of the Lord. Raise your hands and shout to the Lord. Tell God this, okay? But there was no discussion, explanation, or really presentation at all that I remember anyway about his name, Yahweh. Now, every once in a while you'd hear somebody call him Jehovah or something like that, but that's not really in the realm of consideration to what I'm speaking to today. Now, as I've said in many videos over the last 6 years or so now, names are important. Names reveal relationship. They demonstrate intimacy. Names are special. I felt compelled to touch on this again, and it's been quite a while since I've talked about it. I have several videos discussing this in much deeper examination. For anyone who's maybe coming into this for the first time and considering, like we did and so many people that I know, started at some place. I have shared our testimony on here even, and with so many people over the years. My wife, one time in a gathering, just said, why don't we ever speak his name? All we ever say is God. He has a name. Why don't we say his name? And that launched us into a stratosphere that changed our lives forever. An understanding of a simple question that my wife asked in innocence and curiosity and in conviction: why don't we shout the name of our Elohim, of our God, is what she would have said. Why do we just call him God? He gave us his wonderful, beautiful, mighty name. And so I will put this in the comments below. We've done a 3-part series titled, Does the Name of God Matter? We discuss endless texts revealing how Yahweh's name matters to him. That was the whole crux of that series. That's the conclusion. I'll go ahead and let you get to the end if you've not watched that or listened to either one. The conclusion is Yahweh's name matters. If we only go by the scriptures, it matters greatly to him, friend. He makes that very clear in his word. I did a 2-part series asking the question, do men still need to call upon the name of the Lord? All caps in your Bible means Yahweh, okay? And it begins with the verse in Genesis chapter 4. I don't remember where in chapter 4, where I think it's Enosh is born onto the earth. And it says that was the time when men, quote, began to call upon the name of Yahweh. We talk about that in great measure in that series. So look in the comments below for the links if you would like to learn some more. So the question today is, do you call upon the name of Yahweh Elohim, or is he just God to you? I don't want to be offensive. I don't want to make you feel bad. I don't want to try to make anybody feel like they don't know him as good as I do because I say his name and you don't. The question is, why don't we speak his name? Which goes back to where I started this conversation a few moments ago. Would you be okay if I started calling the God of the Bible Allah? Would that bother you? If you listen to this program and you're not really on board with the ancient way and Hebrew understanding and loving the Torah and believing that it's for our good like David penned and so many other authors in the Bible, if you are just kind of putting your feelers out there, how does that land with you if I told you that from now on I'm going to start calling the God of the Bible Allah? Well, you can't do that. Well, that goes back to where we started. Why not? Why not? God is okay, but the, quote, wrong name is not. Well, what about the right name, friend, to the best that we can study and ascertain and understand for ourselves? So do you call upon the name of Yahweh like these verses that we just real quickly just glanced right over? Or is he merely God, a general term, nothing personal, nothing intimate? If you're aware that he has a name, if you're familiar with the Bible, and you're aware that he has a name, yet you don't proclaim and speak it out of your mouth, Friend, do you know why? Do you know why you don't actually say his great name? So consider thinking on this, won't you, as we talk about what? The incredible name of the Almighty Yahweh Elohim. You've been listening to the Path to Zion podcast, where we are rediscovering the ancient way. Thank you so much for following along. Have a great day. Amen.